Well, it is so good to have you here this morning. What we're going to do as folks get their food here, and as you have whatever items you might want to munch on while you're joining us, we're going to do some introductions so that you can get to know some of the folks who are here on behalf of the international leadership team. But we also want to have you do some introductions for those of you who are on Zoom. We'll start with our staff and our governing board, just saying hello to them coming up. And when you come up, you can just say your name, your role with the national organization, and the chapter that you're from, and that's sufficient. For those who are online, if you know how to modify your name via Zoom, you could rename yourself and just put at the end of your name the chapter that you represent, whether you want to list the school or the designation, that's up to you, but that will certainly help. And we will also go around the room of what I can kind of see. But now that we're getting a lot more folks in the meeting room, it might be hard to get to, but that's okay. And then after a few minutes where everybody has been served, we will jump into updates from the organization so that you get a sense of what's new. And then our president, Joe, will speak to you for a few minutes, both about his vision as our new president of the National Fraternity. And we'll then turn it over to you all for questions you can ask him anything. So we'll get underway with all of that in a few minutes. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ian Lowe, and I do have the great privilege and honor of serving our fraternity as its executive director. I've been on staff since 2008, and I've served in a variety of different roles. I started by doing expansion work, so I got the great honor of being able to restart some of our historic chapters: University of Virginia, Temple University, Adelphi University of Long Island, and after that, had the opportunity to get more involved with the operations of the organization, and eventually was promoted to become our executive director. But it has been really wonderful working for an organization with such a timeless group, and with an organization that is providing opportunities for men to come together, to build fraternal bonds, and have a life experience. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to have the staff just quickly come up again, say their name, their role and staff, and the chapter that they're from. I didn't mention my chapter. I am from the Baldwin Wallace University chapter, Ohio Bay. I'm going to have Calvin come on up, followed by Chris and Brian from our teams. So staff, come on up, please.
Good morning. Thanks for being here. My name is Calvin Gary. I'm from our Indiana Epsilon Gamma chapter at Sens University, Southern Indiana. I'm our assistant executive director, and I've been on staff for about 4 years now. So yeah, so I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad to have everyone here in the room. I recognize a lot of the names on here. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. I will turn this over to Brian.
Hello, everyone. For those of you I haven't had the privilege of meeting, my name is Brian Moore. I'm the Director of Operations for Pilam Educational. I've been on staff for about 3 years now, and I'm from our chapter at Eastern Washington University in Washington Epsilon Alpha. Thank you for joining me.
And good morning. My name is Chris River. I am the Director of Alumni Relations for Pilam Educational. I am also from Ohio Beta Tau at Baldwin Wallace, and I've been on staff since Labor Day. So I've just been on staff just about 6 months. So I'm still quite the neophyte on staff, but I've enjoyed my time, and it's wonderful to have you all here. Thank you all for coming, both virtually and in person this morning. Really appreciate you all being here.
All righty, so we've got a good group of folks here. Appreciate you joining. Wow, 20 some folks. So just going through for those who are listed here, we'll have you come off mute if you can and just say your name and the chapter that you're from, because it's not always written there. Anthony Dowling, can you just introduce yourself and say the chapter that you're from?
Hello, my name's Anthony Dowling. I'm from Omega Zeta chapter out of Western Carolina University.
Thank you. Joel Weiss.
I'm Joel Weiss. I'm in Florida, Pilam, the Florida Institute of Technology.
Thank you. Stan Klunder. Stan, can you hear us? Well, that's Stan Klunder. He is from Eureka Omicron at St. John's University. And he also a former president of our international fraternity. I think you were also at one point the president of our foundation. So thank you, Stan. Travis Collins.
Hi there, Travis Collins from the Wisconsin Omega chapter, also trustee on the foundation currently.
Thank you. Gordon.
Gordon Henriot, Indiana Alpha Delta.
At Indiana State, the mighty Sycamores. Thanks, Gordon. William Jenkins.
Morning, everybody. William Jenkins, North Carolina Megatown, Appalachian State University.
From the lovely Boone, North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Bob.
Yes, sir.
Bob, where are you from?
Good morning, everybody. I am here and living here now in Bellevue, Washington, and hopefully maybe next time you have these meetings, you'll consider the guys on the West Coast a little bit at 6 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I graduated from the University of Michigan back in 1961. I was in the Michigan Epsilon chapter. I don't think it exists anymore, but anyway, I moved out to Seattle after I graduated and went to work for the Boeing Company. Worked for them for 39 years, and now I'm employed by Starbucks. So really enjoying that. And hi, everybody. Glad to meet you all.
Thank you, Bob. And Starbucks is an official sponsor of this event, I'm told. So thank you. We have Eli Hoffman. Eli.
Good morning, brothers. Temple University, Alpha Delta, joined in 1959. And I was an accountant for 60 years and two 30-year terms with two large firms. And I had the privilege of being the chairman of a private foundation and have helped Pilam Educational Foundation a little bit.
Eli is very modest. He has been a lifelong volunteer and donor. He's also the recipient of our Big Pie Award, which is an award for lifetime achievement for professional success. So Eli, it's great to have you here. Good to see you.
Thank you. And those plaques are on my wall. You can't see them from here, but the Big Pie plaque is here. And I honor it.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Eli. We've got Gary Sanders. I know he's going to talk a bit later as well with you, but Gary, can you introduce yourself?
Sanders, PA Sigma Upsilon chapter at Shippensburg University, and current president of the Educational Foundation.
Thank you, Gary. Evan Smittle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Evan Smittle, and I'm from Ohio Beta Tau at Baldwin Wallace University.
Evan is a former professional staff member. He's also the chapter advisor for his chapter at Ohio Beta Tau Baldwin Wallace. Orrin Webb.
Hey, good morning, everybody. If you can hear me, I'm Orrin Webb. I'm from the Maryland Kappa Delta chapter of Salisbury University. And I also used to be on staff for about 3.5 years. Worked with some awesome, worked with the refounding of some organizations like PA Delta Iota, Drexel, Indiana Alpha Theta, Indiana University, and a bunch more, but you'll hear more about me later on. I'm excited to be here and good to see you all.
Thank you, Orrin. Alex Dannenberg. You are muted. Alex is saying he's from the Pittsburgh chapter, PA Gamma Sigma. You're still on mute. There you go.
Hello again. That's right. I'm at PA Gamma Sigma, University of Pittsburgh. And it's great to see brothers from all over the country. I serve on the chapter advisor board at Pitt for many years. And I'm with the work with the Alumni Association, and I'm humbled and honored to volunteer for such a great organization.
Thank you, Alex. Ed Hennessy.
Ed Hennessy, it's Tau Kappa chapter Pilam at Quinnipiac University. Graduated in 1971.
Wonderful, thank you, Ed. We have James or Jim Good. Jim.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Jim Good. I am a brother in the Florida Delta Upsilon chapter at Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, Florida. Great to see everyone.
Thank you, Jim. Kyle Cron.
This is Kyle Cron out of the Wisconsin Omega chapter.
Good boy. University of Wisconsin-Madison. Eric Courtney.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
I'm clear.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a 1973 graduate from Ohio Beta Tau chapter, Baldwin Wallace.
Thank you, Eric. And I think last but not least, Jim Netto.
Yeah, hello everybody. Jim Netto, 95 graduate from Virginia Omicron Zeta, Virginia Tech, and currently serving as an alumni chapter coach for that chapter.
Thank you, Jim. And I think Mo Lip also joined us. I skipped over him by accident. Mo, you want to introduce yourself? I think you're on mute, Mo. You're probably telling us about how great the Gators are as a Florida Delta guy. Yeah, he's agreeing. Go Gators, yeah. So he is from Florida Delta, University of Florida. Great to have you here, Mo. I think that I'm sorry, Mike Hunt. Okay. The Boston team. Mike Hunt.
Yeah.
The Boston team. Mike Hunt.
This is Michael Hahn of from PA Delta Iota from PA Delta Iota Drexel. And we're probably one of the few schools that go by 5 years but a lifetime. That go by not 5 years but a lifetime because of our 5-year terms. I'm currently a coach for our chapter.
Thank you, Mike from Drexel. Longtime volunteer as well. Our other chapter advisory board did an article on Mike a few weeks ago. You might have seen on our slide. Mike a few weeks ago. You might have seen. All right, you know, there's a little bit of feedback on me. All right, you know, there's a little bit of feedback on me. There we go. All right. Well, anyways, again, thank you so much for being here. We've got a bunch of folks in the room too. They have joined us. We won't have them all come up and introduce themselves, but thank you for those who've come in to be here with us this morning. As promised, I wanted to give you all some updates on the organization. And I know that some of you who joined us virtually and in person, some of you are very involved. You serve on different boards or in different roles, and so you're probably familiar with this. This might be your first time really interacting with us. And that's perfectly wonderful too. But I want to give you just a couple of quick updates about how we're doing as an organization. And then Joe Nascimento, our president, is going to talk to you about his vision and where he wants to go. So how have things been going? Well, I can tell you that if you looked pre-pandemic, so the years leading up to that, we were doing really, really well. That 10-year period leading up to it, we had seen growth in all of the general things that we measure. So we had increased total students, more chapters, our finances were as strong as they've ever been, and I'm talking collection rates, cash flow, budget versus actual comparisons. We had done more educational programming for our students in a variety of different ways. Our staff had grown. All of these things were going very well. We were expanding, meaning starting new chapters, some of the chapters that you all represent. So things were going pretty well. When COVID commenced, like many different organizations or industries, we felt the strain of it as well. And we could anticipate as a fraternal community, meaning the other big organizations and ourselves, we understood that there were going to be challenges. We knew and we saw that there was going to immediately be a hit to recruitment because of the way classes were changing to the online model. So we saw that. We saw a decrease in recruitment. We also knew that for certain chapters, there were going to be house vacancies because students weren't returning to school. They were virtual for semesters at a time. We also knew that a social fraternity was going to have to socialize different when you couldn't meet in person. So we saw a big difference there. And what we also saw were two interesting things. When faced with adversity and challenge, some of our chapters unfortunately just gave up. And we did lose chapters, and we saw a reduction in our total students. And we are still navigating that. But what we also saw, because there's good news here, we saw some incredible resiliency and some innovation in how we adapt to the situation, whether it was utilizing online learning or utilizing even Zoom sessions for recruitment or virtual happy hours for alumni. We even saw groups do virtual philanthropy events to raise money for charitable causes. So these things were very inspiring. But when this all began, when COVID began, and we knew that we were going to be facing these challenges, the national organization, meaning our headquarters, the folks that do the day-to-day work, paired with our International Executive Council, our volunteer governing board, we worked together and we saw the problem. And like we've done for over 125 years, we just leaned in and said, let's figure it out. And so we immediately worked to create financial leniency for our chapters. I think we've issued and allowed more payment plans over the past few years than any time in the time that I've been on staff. We lowered the cost that we could. We slashed the educational fees that were part of dues. We worked pretty hard to lower our insurance rates per man across the board. And we even rolled out financial incentives for the chapters, that if they were able to recruit at certain levels, they could just keep the excess fees for guys that they were able to recruit. And it's awesome that more than half of our chapters have taken advantage of that, which has put cash back into their pockets, because we know that that was a real challenge, plus add on inflation. We know that every little bit of dollars matters for them. So those are some of the things that we did. We've obviously navigated through that. You know, we did lose chapters and we've gone down in some of our members, but we're through the thick of COVID. However, it is not as though we just automatically return back to how things were in 2018. What we are observing right now and noticing is that there was and remains a large gap in the development of our students at no fault of their own. But our current student members missed out on 1 to 2 years of really pivotal developmental experiences. You think back to your own high school experience and the things that you did, whether it was organizations that you were involved in high school, or sports or arts or music. Maybe it was your first job. Maybe you began to socialize or date. Think about how transformative high school was for you and how that prepared you for college. Now imagine if 1 to 2 years of your high school experience just gone, but you still had time pass and then had to go on to college. Well, that's what our students inherited, again, at no fault of their own. So when we look at today, what we see is that they need a lot more support and help in running a fraternal organization in 2023 with the complexities that running such an organization brings. So we are working with them, and there's a number of things that we're doing. A few things just to highlight that we're doing is really investing in the support that we can provide them. And while our staff does this day to day, and we love doing this, no fraternal organization is staffed in a way to provide all of the support that boots on the ground folks can do, or that our chapters need. So what we've done is worked very extensively to grow our volunteer base of chapter advisors, or what we now call chapter coaches. I can tell you, pre-pandemic, we had less than 100 total chapter advisors. Now, that number is well over 140. And it's with the same number of chapters after all that time. And so we've increased the number of volunteer coaches. Some of them are with us here today. Thank you for those of you who serve so dutifully. But by providing more volunteer advisors and coaches, we know it's going to help translate into success for our executives. What we've also done is focused more on the training for running these organizations. And so we rolled out pre-pandemic our first Leadership Institute. After a pause in that because of COVID, we'll be doing the Leadership Institute again this summer. And we're really excited about it because this institute defines frameworks around understanding commitment to something bigger than oneself. Bringing in this idea of effective followership. What's it mean to not be a titled leader, but to be an effective follower within a greater unit? And if I am a titled leader, how do I lead very effectively with my people in mind? And we bring all those things together, we have great teamship. So we're rolling that out again this summer. We're really excited about it. And it's not just teaching concepts. So there's frameworks, but then the students learn it, and then they actually get to go out in the field. And I mean, literally in the field. And they're on high ropes courses and climbing walls and obstacle courses and on a lake. And they're doing activities in teams of other students trying to apply these concepts. And then they put it into a plan they can bring back to their chapter to improve both the operations and the relationships within their chapter. This also gives them common language tools and frameworks to use when talking about this with their peers. And the last thing I'm going to highlight, building off this idea of bringing it back and building the relationships with each other. COVID challenged the community that we had because it made us go virtual. We couldn't always live together. It changed things so dramatically. So we are reframing the building of a community, coming back together, doing social functions, having alumni in-person events. Another part of that too is, what's it look like to live and work together? And so one of the other things that we've heard is that how do we help our chapters find communal living, a house? And so we've been very fortunate. We have a number of alumni that have said, yes, communal living, building community by having shared experiences in a house, that's important. So we've got alumni that have helped with finding housing opportunities. And the two big ones that really note of success so far have been at PA Gamma Sigma, University of Pittsburgh. We got some of those folks here. That alumni group helped them completely rebuild, renovate that house and make it beautiful. And that same group is working with West Virginia chapter, helped them find a house. It was actually a sorority house. It's pretty good shape when we found it, but they helped them find a sorority house and acquire that. And they'll be able to utilize that starting this coming fall for their communal living. So there's all types of things we're doing. That's the quick overview. We're excited about the future. If you have additional questions about what our headquarters is doing, please do reach out to us, or you can ask it during the Q&A session. But we are excited about where we're going. We will get there together with our students, with our key volunteers, and with our national governance leadership team. I'm going to pause though, and I'm going to turn things over to Joe Nascimento. Again, Joe is the president of our International Executive Council. Joe.
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Ian. Thank you all for being here this morning, especially those of you that had to wake up at 6 a.m. to be with us on the West Coast. Again, my name is Joe Nascimento, Florida Delta, PC2. I am the president of our International Executive Council. I have been for almost a year now, and prior to that, I served as our secretary. And prior experience includes chapter advisor for Florida Delta and House Corporation president. I've had various roles, and that's kind of what has guided me and what Ian talks about my vision, or our vision for the organization. COVID was a scary time. As a volunteer and a member of our council, when campuses were shutting down, I wasn't sure in my mind that we would continue to exist. And it, only because of the hard work and guidance of our professional staff did we make it through that. And when I would say stronger and leaner and more effective and efficient in our operations. But it also caused me to sit back and think how our model was upside down. We talk about not 4 years or not 5 years in some cases, but a lifetime. But what are we doing as an organization, and what are we doing as a board to really live that, to really provide opportunities for our members to continue living that motto? And really, there wasn't much going on at the time. We were spending what I guess to be 90% of our resources on what is 5% of our customer base as a business, our undergraduates. And I understand our mission is to provide opportunities to recruit, open new chapters, and have more members. But we were spending so much of our time and energy and resources dealing with our undergraduates that we're losing sight of what was really important, and that was our alumni group, the many years of membership that happened after the initial 4 years of your undergraduate experience. So COVID caused us and forced us to take a step back and look at that, not just for financial reasons, but also for financial reasons, thinking about how we depend upon 5% of our customer base to provide 90% of our funding, and how that's backwards, especially when that 5% are the 5% who have the least amount of money to provide to support our operations. But also with the thought and the fear that with campuses shutting down, we've had school closures, we've had universities have become less hospitable to Greek organizations. We need to ensure that our organization continue to exist despite another pandemic or any other issues that we face, through services and opportunities that we provide our alumni and their support financially and through their volunteerism. So our vision is, in the next several years, looking forward, increasing our use of resources to provide opportunities for our alumni to gather, reconnect with their fellow brothers in their pledge classes or around their eras, provide professional development opportunities, professional networking opportunities for our young alums, opportunities for our older alums to mentor some of our newly graduated members who are looking for advice on how to interview for jobs, resume writing, things of that nature, and connections in the professional community. And really, for me, most importantly, just opportunities for us to gather and have fun and reminisce about our college years, and talk about what continues to bring us back to this group. Because it's amazing, this really hit home for me last summer when I was installed as our president. And there was a large group of Florida Delta guys who just surprised me and coordinated showing up for that banquet, and showing up for the entire weekend. There were guys who I hadn't seen in 15 years that just made the trip out there. And that was the first time for me that I personally experienced that. But I've heard stories, countless stories, and I've seen it just in my Florida Delta group and other chapters, groups of alums from the 60s, 50s, 70s, 80s, who get together and haven't seen each other for 20, 25 years and it's like they haven't missed a day. We need to provide more opportunities for that. We need to provide more support. So we brought on Chris Ryber, who is on our International Executive Council, and he is our Director of Alumni Relations. We are looking to create an entire department on staff over the next several years that will concentrate on alumni relations. We're working very closely with our educational foundation to coordinate events and opportunities, to host our alumni, provide services to them, and then hopefully inspire our alums to give both financially and with their time. Ian's mentioned our chapter coaching program. We've grown that over the last few years during COVID, and we're continuing to think about and talk about how we grow that program and provide more support to our chapters. So really where I see us, we have our staff who's doing a great job at chapter services and taking care of our undergrads. We're looking to get volunteers who are going to help us to increase our services to our alumni so that we're truly living our motto, not 4 years, but a lifetime. I don't want to take up too much more time just with me talking to you all. I want to open it up for any questions that you have, not just for me. You're likely going to ask a question that I'm going to have to grab Ian and pull him up here because Ian is a tremendous resource for our organization. And with him and the staff, they're probably going to have the answers to almost any question you have. But Ian, if there's anything else, otherwise
Well, actually, this is a good time to have Gary, Travis, and then Roger, and then we'll open it up for the asking.
My apologies, Gary. You turn your camera on. We'll turn it over to you first, and then we'll have Roger say a few words. And Travis. But Gary Sanders, who's the president of our Education Foundation, is with us right now. He's just a black screen. Give him 5 seconds before we turn it over to Roger.
Well, we can pivot to Travis. I know he's with us. Travis, if you can kind of comment, just again, Travis is one of the trustees of our Educational Foundation. He's a prior councilman as well. And for that, he was a chapter advisor for Wisconsin. So he's done a lot of things. But Travis, if you could talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that the foundation is pushing and the new ways folks can support, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, happy to do that, and certainly happy to be here and see the group we got together on a Saturday morning. It's awesome. A couple things just to note from a foundation perspective of areas that we've been focused on. I think in particular, making it easier to give. So a lot of requests we've seen in recent years have been around the ability to give recurring gifts in an easy fashion that's not dependent on the individual kind of taking on that burden. So we have kind of a solution for that now, which we feel really good about, and it has, I think, shown kind of early signs of promise of what that will be able to deliver from really building a base around the giving that is taking place and providing some kind of reliable stream of donations so that we can build and plan accordingly off of that as far as how we redeploy those resources across the organization. We'll continue to solicit larger gifts and continue some of the other channels that the foundation has pursued in the past. But it does bring a different kind of planning element to the foundation that maybe was less certain in prior iterations. In addition to that, I think we're just we're engaging many more people in the fundraising effort across what the foundation does. I know Roger's sitting in the room, but I think that there's been a handful of individuals over the years who have shouldered a lot of the burden of fundraising for the foundation. I think there's a acknowledged need across the foundation and IEC that needs to expand out in order for us to achieve some of the objectives that the foundation wants in the future. And what does that look like? There's really an ability for the foundation to fund a lot more. And really what that means is reduce the burden on the undergraduates a lot more with substantial fundraising. So be it investments in different kind of educational technology or reduction in kind of the standard dues through an ability to offset more of the educational expenses. So there's a lot of untapped potential around what a larger Pilam DeFi Educational Foundation could provide to the organization overall. It really comes down to what is the base of funds that the foundation has to be able to responsibly deploy dollars in an endowment model over time. And, I think that the reality, the brutal fact of this is that, the corpus of funds that the foundation has right now, we provide what we think is appropriate, support for that base of funds, but we would always want it to be more. So how do we do that, and how do we engage in that? Maybe I'll pause there for a second, see if Gary or Roger or anybody else wants to jump in.
Travis, thank you. I don't know if Gary's joined us. What we'll do now is we'll pivot to Roger. Roger Orloff, if I'm going to ask you to come up, Roger. Roger's, I think many people in this room will say Roger is one of their favorite Pilams. Just seeing that Roger has done for this fraternity over many years, big pie winner, former councilman on our Education Foundation. As Travis mentioned, has been carrying the load on his shoulders of the Education Foundation as being our biggest solicitor of donations, making phone calls, writing letters, doing everything that he could himself, both with time and what he'll talk about with his gift, to put the foundation in a position to fund as much of the educational activities of the fraternity as possible. I don't think our foundation or our fraternity would be where it is today without Roger and brothers like Roger. So Roger, thank you. And if you could share a little bit of your story with this group.
Thank you, Joe. As I'll explain, I'm sure I'm not one of Stan or Eli's favorite Pilams. I have gotten a great deal from Pilam Defy. It means a great deal to me, and I think all of you, for varying reasons, could say the same thing. That's why you're here this morning, and I don't think you'll find anything remarkable in that. I have derived tremendous benefit from Pilam Defy, both as an undergraduate student and as an alumnus. And again, I don't think there's anything in that would shock any of you. Again, I'm sure that's why you're here this morning. And perhaps you wouldn't all agree with me on this. I think with being willing to accept those benefits, it imposes an obligation to do more than be appreciative. And I would argue that part of that obligation is to do whatever you can to assure that the men who follow you will have the same opportunities from which you so richly benefited. There is a phrase that for me sums that up very well, and that really has motivated everything that I've done for Pilam Defy as an alumnus. And that phrase is the longevity of Pilam Defy. There is a great history to Pilam Defy. We very, very literally invented diversity in American fraternities. When the idea of diversity in an American fraternity was an anathema, when it was taken as a given that the men with whom you would want to associate in a fraternity would be ones who shared your religion, your race, and so on. We dared to break that mold and bring together very, very different kinds of men and show that they could not only live together in harmony, but accomplish some very significant things together. That idea has endured for 128 years. Many of our alumni, and I've got time this morning to elaborate on this, I may ask you to take it as a given, but I certainly could. Many of our alumni have been leaders in bringing diversity to many, many fields. But that rich history does not ensure our future. It does not by itself ensure the longevity of Pilam Defy. We, throughout those 128 years, have been faced with numerous challenges. And as Ian and Joe have explained, we have in recent years been faced with new challenges, some of which have been existential threats. I believe, and here I am speaking for myself, not for the Educational Foundation and not for the fraternity, but I believe that to ensure the longevity of Pilam Defy, there are at least 3 things that we are going to have to do on a far larger scale than anything we have attempted in the past. We are going to have to give much more support to our active chapters, for professional staff and volunteers, to bring down the rate of attrition of chapters that has haunted us, not just recently, but really throughout our existence. We are going to have to be much more aggressive in our expansion program beyond just preserving our existing chapters if we're going to continue to grow. And I believe strongly that growth is part of the key to the longevity of Pilam Defy. And we are going to have to undertake a program of which this morning is one, but to me, unfortunately, one of too few so far examples of social programs that bring alumni together, both in person and virtually. Communication programs for alumni that allow not only us to communicate with them and address the question of the only time I ever hear from you is when you ask me for money. But I think even more importantly than that, allow them to communicate with us, as we're giving you a small chance to do this morning, to communicate both ways with their chapters and to communicate with one another. And particularly something that we have done very little of up until now, and that is a program of services for alumni that will make not 4 years, but a lifetime a reality and not just an attractive slogan. I think we should make it easy for Pilams to mentor one another, to do business with one another, to look to one another for whatever help in their lives brotherhood should entitle them to be able to expect. I think that's a great vision, but it is going to be expensive. I think it is going to be expensive to an extent that would dwarf anything that we have raised or spent in the past. It's going to mean more professional staff. It's going to mean more volunteers. It's going to mean more support for professional staff and volunteers in the form of information technology, software, all of the other things that they're going to need to be able to do their jobs. As Joe said, and I think this is the reason why Stan and Eli dread it when my name pops up on their caller ID. I spend a lot of time on the phone each year soliciting contributions to the Educational Foundation to help pay for some of these expenses. And Stan, Eli, and all of the other alumni with whom I speak each year have responded generously to those appeals. But that, I believe, is only a beginning. I think we need to raise far more than that to fund the 3 initiatives that I've described. Now, to me, that is much more than just a pipe dream. We are a wealthy fraternity. We have alumni whose names I won't mention, but whose names would be very familiar to you, and some whom you've never heard of, who have the ability to make a contribution that would be transformative to Pilam Defy without really missing the money, who are already making donations far larger than that to other charities to which they're fully committed. It is doable. We just have to make the commitment and find the methods and the means to go out and do it. I have made the commitment myself, to which Joe alluded, to walk the walk. I have included in my will a bequest, and I should say that I'm 83 years old. So when I talk about a bequest, this is something more than an abstraction of something that will be realized in the far distant future. I'm in good health and I'm doing my darndest to stay that way, but the actuary. Your lips to God's ear. The actuarial tables are not on my side when it comes to longevity. I have included a request, which at the time it is realized will be very, very significant to Pilam Defy. What I think is much more important than the size of that bequest is the purpose of the bequest. And that is very much in line with the notion of teach a man to fish and you feed him for life. The purpose of that bequest will be to underwrite the cost for I hope into the indefinite future, for fundraising activities by the Educational Foundation. Now, why is that so important that I would want to commit a bequest to do it when there is so much else in Pilam Defy that is crying out for money right now? The reason is that I believe if that bequest is used properly, and I have made it with faith that the men who will make the men who will make the decisions of how to use it, then that will bring in funds for Pilam Defy far in excess of what I hope by then will be viewed as my relatively modest bequest. And those funds that it will bring in will, I believe in time, fund those three initiatives that I spoke about: more robust support for chapters, more aggressive expansion, a full spectrum of social communication programs for alumni and services for alumni. All of you, please God, will live far beyond my lives, but I would urge you all to think very seriously if Pilam Defy means as much to you as I think your presence here this morning indicates that it does. The next time you sit down to think about your wills, to think about including in them what you regard as an appropriate bequest to Pilam Defy, to help assure that the young men who follow me and who follow you will have the same opportunities from which we have all so richly benefited. So please, if you take away anything from this morning, don't think about me, but think about including that bequest in your wills.
Thank you, Roger. At this time, we're going to open it up for y'all's questions. We're going to have some chairs that are closer to the podium, so give us a moment to reposition them. Myself and Joe and Roger will be sitting closer if you have questions for the operations, the kind of vision that Joe talked about, or some of the foundation pieces that Roger spoke about. Of course, Travis, with us on Zoom, can also comment on some of the foundation related questions that may come up. I know some of you sent some questions to Chris. I appreciate that. You can continue to put them in the chat. You can also come off mute too and ask them as well. Chris, I think you fielded a question or two. Can you start us off?
Yeah, I do. We had a question from Anthony Dowling from Western Carolina University. He asked, what can an alumni organization do navigate with a university that seems aimed at limiting or even decreasing fraternity and sorority life on campus?
For those of you on Zoom, were you able to adequately hear Chris repeat the question? No, okay, no problem, no problem. So that's fine, I'll repeat it. So the question, okay, it'll be in the chat too, but it came from Anthony from our chapter, Western Carolina, and I'm summarizing. If I misstated, Anthony, correct me. But the question was, how does an alumni group work with a university, a host institution, when it feels like the host university is not super supportive of Greek life? Is that adequate, Anthony, for what you were trying to get across? Okay, I see the head nod, thanks. So I'll answer that. Times are different than they were for a lot of us when we were in school. And so there's changes, and that's okay. And even though things are different, that doesn't mean that the past was bad. I want to be clear about that. But we all have to be aware of how things are changing on campuses. So the first piece is to ensure that we are informed and educated of the various policies and expectations. We have to come prepared with that. Number two, really leaning on the headquarters, because we can help bridge some of those gaps and be a good liaison and have conversations together. That also shows the university when both the headquarters and the chapters alum are working together. They actually like that because it shows that there's partnership. Seeking clarity around what their expectations are, and then creating a game plan. I will admit, that there's thousands of schools across the country, and they're all very different in some of their approaches. For us, for our 40-some chapters, not all institutions have the same level of support. I mean, you're spot on, and we are a guest on their campus, so it's important to us to respect that relationship. And we nationally do very much believe in that partnership. But that does not mean that universities always make decisions that we agree with. That's not always the case, unfortunately. So we have to agree, we have to start with the approach of we are a guest and we want partnership and we want to see clarity. And the nice thing is, if we leverage our relationships, sometimes we can find other partners, maybe higher up the university, that can kind of help bring clarity or find resolutions when there are challenges.
Ian, may I add a word to that?
Please, Roger's going to add something as well.
We have an advantage, we fraternity members have an advantage on many campuses in that we give more generously and more frequently than non-fraternity members. Where that is the case, we need to take advantage of that to advocate for the fraternal system to our university administrators. And I think in particular, we should involve in that advocacy those of our members who have been particularly generous donors to our universities. And I think we should be lobbying for the fraternal system with the administrations of our universities every opportunity that we get.
Roger sparked a good thought in my mind. There are certain institutions where we exist, where we notice very strong interfraternal Greek alumni groups. Actually, Roger's campus at Rensselaer Institute, Polytechnic Institute, they have an all alumni Greek council. I know UNC Chapel Hill, they have something similar as well. So it's sometimes the same problems that one chapter in the salons might be having. It might be kind of system-wide. So looking to work with other alumni leaders from the fraternal community can help as well. Thank you for the question. Chris, were there any others that came through? Okay, then that's fine. Well, we will, if you have a question and you want to come off mute, you're welcome to share that as well.
And how many chapters do we have?
40. We have 40 chapters. There's a question in the room. This is from Kevin in the back. You can say it and I'll repeat it.
I have a question about development, specifically around what we as alumni do to help continue to develop our, whether it's young alumni or folks that are still in undergrad. One of the things that I kind of countered when I was a chapter coach was I really wanted to provide as much development as humanly possible, whether it was resume development and what it's like to be on Pilam in your undergraduate years kind of look like. What does IHQ or look to do in terms of like a short-term, long-term strategy to have for development program? What we as alumni do to kind of open those doors up?
Thank you, Kevin. Let me restate that for those on Zoom. What I believe Kevin was asking is, how do we help get alumni more involved in the development of chapters and its members. He said there's a variety of ways that can look. I think you were talking about like professional development that alums might be able to offer students, correct? Okay, that's a really great question. One of the things we've noticed is that historically, when you look at how does somebody volunteer for the fraternity? Every chapter has a chapter advisor, but that's a pretty time-intensive commitment. And not every alum has the ability or the capacity because of life to do that. So we've kind of had just that volunteer piece, or you're on a national group. And thank goodness for those people who play those roles. But we have to be able to accommodate those who can't do that, but who can do other things. So the short answer is reach out to Chris Ryber on the staff because as the director of our alumni relations area, he wants to get more of you all involved. And now this is the beauty of technology. We can get you participating virtually with the chapters, maybe share your story or best practices for interviewing or resume workshops. One of the cool things I actually saw at Florida State a few years ago, this was really cool.
They don't do a lot of cool things at Florida State.
There's a little bit of banter here between the Gators and the Seminoles. But true story. So Florida State, not a lot of alumni live in Tallahassee after graduation, which is not uncommon for our big Power 5 type schools. One of the things they did, they said, hey, why don't we zoom in special alums to talk for 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of a chapter meeting. We can put it on the big screen. All the students can see it. And so when we have a very accomplished alum from Florida State named Sean Flood, who doesn't live anywhere near Tallahassee, but he can zoom in and talk about the company that he created from scratch and grew it to 7 figures. He can talk with them, share his story. He feels good because he's been invited into it. The students feel connected and proud that it's one of their alums. So these things are all possible. However, it doesn't always happen by assuming that the students are going to coordinate that. So I know at Florida State, there had to be coordination of the key alumni on the chapter advisory board saying, okay, we're going to do it on this Sunday at this time. I need a Zoom link. I have to give it to Sean Flood at least a week in advance because he has a busy schedule. So the chapter advisors can help coordinate some of those opportunities. That's one way to do it. And I think just also having the chapter advisors ask the alumni from their chapters. I'm not asking you to do everything, but what could you do? And then keeping an archive of, well, how has that alum offered to help? And then creating the opportunities. I know that could be a lot of an ask for a chapter advisor to coordinate. Again, go back to Chris Ryber, our Director of Alumni Relations, would be happy to help you navigate that and set it up, and then maybe share that with other chapters as a best practice. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, Joe wants to add as well.
So on a much more basic level, the first step we could take as alums is log on to our portal and make sure your information is correct. I had breakfast 2 weekends ago with an undergrad who had told me that he logged on his own, logged onto the portal, sought out 30 or 40 people that he could find in finance and sent them emails. And that resulted in 5 phone calls with alums. And it resulted in him joining us for breakfast with one of my contemporaries, sitting down and getting advice. And what should I do next? This is what I want to do with my career. Who should I be talking to? So very basic, it takes 2 minutes, update your info in the portal, because our students today are getting better at using our tools to reach out for help.
And we're actually going to show you an example on our portal. Brian will be screen sharing in a moment here. This is something that we rolled out again with our technology advances. We have the option when you log into the portal, you can list what your professional background was, even if you are retired now. And you can say that you're open to being contacted to provide professional networking or mentoring to students. And we've had multiple alums contact us and say, hey, I actually heard from a student. So right now, can you share this on the main screen? We're going to put this up on the screen. Okay, for our alumni on Zoom, are you able to see this where it shows an email and says primary profession?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a list of alumni. There's over 100 or so, and they're able just to basically say, this is my career type, and yes, I'm open to contact. And then it automatically pulls from our database their email, and then their title that they entered. If you can minimize the thank you. Perfect. All the way over on the right, if they have a LinkedIn account and they've updated it, it automatically pulls that and it shows where they reside. And so our students can search this based on career type, location that they may be going to. They can look at what chapter. So there's all of these ways that we can network. And I'm sure there's ways to improve this too. So play with this and tell us how we can make it better. And then I'll tell Brian to make it better. Camilo.
Yep, if I can just add on to both your comments. This is a great resource, right? And it does pull you into your LinkedIn profile, which is also great. But the one thing you have to always keep in mind is that students today are sophisticated with technology. And so not only have I been contacted in this method, but I've also had students, not from my chapter, contact me just through LinkedIn, right? And I asked them, well, how did you find me? And so within LinkedIn or any social media platform, right, it's about putting your name out there that you are a candidate, right? Putting something on there. So, hey, under volunteer, right? There's a volunteer category for LinkedIn. Put out there, I'm a pioneer. I'm from this chapter. I'm a chapter coach. And so when students go in and start trying to network, especially seniors, and I had a lot of them called seniors, hey, this is the career path I want to follow. And I know you've been successful at it. Can you spend a half hour with me on Zoom or 45 minutes? Tell me about what you did to make your career successful. What advice do you have for me? And honestly, you'll start getting students reaching out to you, whether it's through this platform, whether it's LinkedIn directly. I've had students contact me on Facebook, right? So if you're savvy enough to be able to use social media, take advantage of that by, somehow getting yourself more visible as a Pilam, right? And it's not just about your volunteer, join the Pilam National Headquarters group. If your alma mater has their own alumni kind of group, join those groups. But the most important piece is you have to be active on social media too, right? So the best way for students to find you and reach out to you is being active. Being active doesn't mean you have to post every day. Being active means that, hey, maybe once a week post something. And so what I'll tell you is really effective for you to do that is get a letter from IHQ, repost it in your alumni group on all the platforms, and people will start looking at it. And usually the undergrads are part of those alumni groups, and you'll get a lot of
Thank you, Camilo. We're actually going to share, we're sharing now on our screen. This is the very first page you would see if you log into our Pilam Portal. And
Ian, before you go any further, let's make sure we all know how to get to the Pilam Portal.
yes, so actually, if you went to our website, pilamdefy.org, in the upper right-hand corner, it'll say log in. I know you all know how to spell our fraternity. You have to add a .org. So once you're there, you click log in. When you get there, if you've already created an account, you just re-enter your password. If you've never done it before, you claim your account. There's pretty straightforward instructions for it. You just put in your email, some information about your staff designation. If by chance there are any issues, Brian or Chris can help you access it. But once you've logged in, this is the homepage you will see. Sorry. Yes. This is the home page that you will see. And within it, the update my profile. Click on that, please. Off on the right, you'll see employment history. That's where you would go and you can plug in the different types of employment histories that you have, different jobs, different career types. And within that is the section where you can click to make this viewable to students on the page that we were on just recently. Brian has not added his yet because he's only been working for Pilam. But after he leaves, he can add those things and you can do that. Can you go back, please? So within your main profile, you can fill out other information, nickname, the brother most responsible for you joining, which links then to his profile and all those things. But if you go back to the homepage again, I'm just going to highlight a couple of other cool things you can see and do. You can look at, you don't have to open it, but if you have any award history or giving history to our foundation, it's all tracked in there. So you can check out those things. The networking and mentoring opportunities is what we were looking at a few moments ago, where you saw the different alums who said, I'm open to being contacted. You can donate, of course. Pilam University is predominantly for our students and our coaches. It is our online learning management system for training. The campaign progress dashboard, click on that, please. If you and your chapter want to launch an initiative to raise funds, you can do so. And these are a variety of accounts we have, or initiatives, and different fundraising progress toward that. So we can help you do that. You can donate right off of this, and you can see the thermometer, the horizontal thermometer increase as you go. So there's a bunch of those options as well. And then if you can go back to the brother search, you can also search for brothers. So you could go ahead and just do Calvin Carey. Can we do that? Can we search you? Sure, why not? So if we were trying to find Calvin Carey, we could type him in. You can do this again for your folks. And there pops up this information. You can get more information. So you can do this yourself. So when you want to get in touch with a long lost brother, you can check this out and see if we have his information. And again, this is all behind password walls. This is not public that anybody can see. It's protected. These are just a few of the things that we can do with the portal. Again, check it out if you have questions or ideas. Reach out to Brian and Chris. We have evolved this multiple times since the initial implementation. We can continue to do so. Any other questions? I think we have some in the chat.
We had one that came from Alex Denberg at PA Sigma, and he had asked, well, he actually had commented, while we are always working on keeping their alumni connected, their alumni base there, currently they're trying to link through some alumni from various areas. New alums are another issue. I'd like to continue to work with Chris and other development to better find a better exit template. Help basically get them involved and engaged immediately upon graduation, as opposed to years down the line.
Yes, I understand the question. Yeah, we have to engage our alumni earlier. And so, of course, one of those components is having an actual director of alumni relations. And Chris, who worked in alumni relations for 6 years at a major university before he came here, very experienced, and knows a lot more about it than I do, which is a great thing for our organization. But he often talks about the importance of engaging our gold alumni, graduates of the last decade. So those recent, that to engage them early. So that's part of Chris's initiative with different regional events that he's going to be doing. That's part of giving them other opportunities outside of just being a chapter advisor or on the governing board. And it ties in with helping them know, if I'm moving to a new city, who are other Pilams I might connect with. So something that's really cool that Chris and Brian and Kyle Cron have been working on Kyle on the phone, is developing a heat map that shows where our alums are. And this is not on the portal yet, because it would show a lot more information about the individual, but we can help. So when Kevin Sarja decides to move from Atlanta to somewhere else, and he says, hey, I'm moving to Chicago and I'm on this street, we can actually hone down in. Sorry. We can hone on in. You do the Chicago where it shows the student and the alums. Brian's going to pull up something. We can help them understand, hey, here are some of the alums that are nearby you. We can help do introductions, and maybe y'all can grab coffee or a meal or participate in an event that we do. So in a moment, Brian's just going to quickly show you.
While we're doing that, I just want to speak to that question as well. This goes back to kind of our vision for 5 years down the line, and what we're working towards. We have Chris as our Director of Alumni Relations. What we need is an Assistant Director of Alumni Relations. It's here. Sorry, don't need to see. We need an Assistant Director of Alumni Relations. We need a staff that's working in that department and all working towards this idea. I think we need to look towards of a national alumni association. You know, figuring out, is that organized regionally or is that by chapter? We need to have our education starting when there are new members talking about, you know, it's not 4 years but a lifetime. So what does that mean? Automatic membership into our alumni association the day after you graduate, contact with them the day after they graduate. These are the services we now provide you as an alum. So it becomes part of our culture, and that's going to take several years before we can initiate that culture shift so that our new members just believe that this is the way it is. The day I graduate, I'm a member of an alumni association. Here's my chapter now. These are the resources that are available to me. We need to be providing professional, mentorship and networking opportunities to our young alums. And I think that'll help capture them in those vital gold years and keep them involved for years to come. So we're building towards that. We've taken a huge leap in that direction with bringing Chris on board. We're getting the tools that we need with the heat map that Brian's sharing with you all now, which is just an amazing tool that we have. We're really trying to utilize the resources of Salesforce and the data that we have, that we can zoom in. And I think what we're about to show you is we can zoom into the very street that a young alumni lives and tell you, hey, you've got 5 Pilams that are within a 3-block radius of you. Why don't you reach out to them, see if you can grab some coffee, have a conversation with them. As we're developing these tools, and what you're seeing here is these purple dots on the screen here are undergraduate students, and the addresses we have for undergrads, and the red dots are our alumni in that area. We've got some great stories of undergrads realizing that they live around the corner from some alum that they've been looking up to for years and not understanding that they're just 5 houses down. Ian, you want to talk more?
You explained it well. So I mean, there are so many cool tools and initiatives that we are launching. It's all very exciting. If any of this captures your interest, piques your interest, if you have questions, we want to hear it. We want more of your feedback. This was just a real quick overview. I'm going to go to Joe to wrap up his final thoughts on the Ask Me Anything part. And then Brian is going to give you the opportunity to opt into some breakout Zoom rooms based on one of 3 topics. There's going to be one on further alumni relations and engagement, one on fundraising, and one on the student membership experience. If any of those topics interest you, you can opt into that virtual breakout room and you can ask more questions about it, or you can pose ideas for us to be considered, because we will take those ideas back as a leadership team and use them as we're doing a strategic plan refresh. So that will be coming just after Joe's final remarks on the Ask Me section. Joe?
Yeah, it's encouraging to me to hear some of your questions, both online and here in person, that are really centered around the alumni experience and how can we connect with the undergraduates, how can we provide support. We don't have the resources that we need to do that today. Right? But we're moving in that direction. Roger spoke to this and where we need to be concentrating our resources, but we need help. Right? So the ask of our alums are update your profile, reach out to Chris, offer up, mentorship, offer up just time. And we're not asking you to give us 10 hours a week. We're not asking you to give us 10 hours a month. if you've got 1 hour a month to sit there and have a meeting with an undergrad who's interested in your field, let us know and we'll do our best to make that connection. And as we continue to build towards this idea of a National Alumni Association and providing the resources of our alums who are currently active and meeting on their own, but bridging that gap between the undergrads and the alums, we'll make it easier for you all to put yourself in that position to provide that support. But for now, just please reach out to us. It's easy to contact us through headquarters. And we now have the staff, some of the resources that we need to be able to make those things happen in the immediate future while we're working towards these bigger goals. Good.
Thank you, Joe. Again, thank you so much for all your questions and for being here. We welcome further ones.